Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to travel from Amboy, California, all the way to the end of Route 66 in Costa Mesa, California. And our first stop is in Ludlow, California. Now, Ludlow is a partial ghost town, but it's still happening because it happens to be right on I-40, so it's a major truck stop. And there's a cafe there that's really interesting called the Ludlow Cafe, and that's going to be our first stop today. The Ludlow Cafe is kind of a diner-style cafe, and it's right there on the left with that orange light there, and you can see it. And we're going to go in there and have breakfast and check it out. You can see it's really early morning. I got rolling quite early today because it's going to be a very long day to make it all the way to Costa Mesa. Before we head inside, we're going to check out a few things outside the town. There's the old truck there, and then there's the motel there. And you can see it's a major truck stop because it's right on I-40. And here's some information about the area. In front of the cafe, you can see these old mining carts as we head inside. And there's also a plaque about the Tidewater Railroad. And here's a few more views of this classic cafe that we're going to go into. It's a really nice place, and it's definitely worth a stop if you're hungry. Good morning.
You can sit wherever you'd like.
Can I sit at the counter?
You can.
Okay.
Would you like some coffee or juice?
So the cafe was awesome. It looks pretty empty right now, but there were people there before me. I ordered the special, which was a waffle and bacon and eggs. It was pretty awesome. And here I am outside of the cafe as I head out. But it was a great time. As we leave the Ludlow Cafe, Route 66 is a frontage road that runs right along I-40. Nothing major happening here, but it's a pretty nice ride to just be off the highway and away from the trucks. It's a really pretty area, and you can see the L on the hill there for Ludlow, and also the omnipresent railroad. I mentioned before that Route 66 is right along I-40, but it's kind of nice to be on this nice quiet road and being away from the big highway and the trucks. So I really enjoyed this cruise. And the next attraction is the Bagdad Cafe, famous for being used in movies, but now struggling. If you'd like to learn more about how the Bagdad Cafe is now struggling, I'd suggest you check out a video by my fellow YouTuber, Wonder Hussy, and I'll put a link to that video below. So if you want to learn more about the cafe, you can check that out. But I was a little down on my luck when I got here as the cafe was closed, so I couldn't get in. What I did find was a barking dog, and we had a little discussion about who was in charge. The movie Bagdad Cafe was actually filmed here, and we're actually closer to Newberry, California, even though the real Bagdad was back toward Amboy. But it had been leveled years ago, so they used this cafe for the movie. It used to be called the Sidewinder Cafe, but they changed the name for the movie. As you can see, it's customary to slap your stickers on the front of the cafe. There's also a little board where you can write messages. I took the time to peer inside when I was there. Outside were these trailers, which were kind of cool. And then next door was this very, very cool old motel called the Henning Motel. It features a very cool old neon sign, but the hotel's long gone. You can still see the foundation, but apparently it burned down or was raised a while ago. I did see some pictures from just a few years ago where you could still see the motel. And here's one last view of the old sign. I truly hope it gets restored in the future. As we head out from the Bagdad Cafe, we're actually in Newberry Springs, and this is where the kind of mountains come in and crowd the road. And there is a spring in there somewhere. I'm not sure where it is, but there is water. After that, we cruise along Route 66 with the railroad on our right, and then we're going to get to a junction. We're going to take the old highway, which goes through the town of Daggett, which is no longer technically on the route, but it's a really interesting place. So we turn right on a road called Hidden Springs, and this will take us into the town of Daggett, which is an historic place, and it's got an old garage and some really cool buildings to check out that are abandoned but really photogenic. And it should be noted that there's a general store there, so if you have the time or you need anything, be sure to stop in and grab something and give them some patronage because that will help them out. The place is called the Desert Market, and I didn't have time to stop, but it looked really cool. Okay, then we leave the old part of Daggett and come into sort of the newer part, and there's this old abandoned gas station called Mugwumps. And also nearby is this really cool old house. It's kind of Russian architectural style or something. I'm not sure where it's from, but there's a bunch of old cars in the yard, and it's a really cool place to check out right there in Daggett. I-40 is right next door, so we don't get on I-40 yet, but we cruise along Route 66, which runs right next to I-40. Next, we roll into the great town of Barstow, California, where you'll see Roy's Cafe, which is a copy of the Roy's sign in Amboy if you watch my earlier video. You'll see some cool tribute signs along the way, but what you really want to do is head over the bridge to the old railroad station, which used to be the Harvey House, and there's a train museum and a Route 66 museum over there. The Harvey Houses back in the day were a really cool thing and the invention of a guy named Fred Harvey. And in today's political environment, they'd be pretty controversial, but back in the day, they were awfully cool. More on that later, but first we've got to check out this really cool outdoor railroad museum. They've got a bunch of old train cars parked out here, and you can just walk around and check them out. It's really fun. They've got old passenger cars, engines, cabooses, the whole bit, and you can climb up on them and check them out. It's really nice. And this is the Casa del Desierto, which is also known as the Harvey House and is the train station in Barstow, California. This is a really cool place, and it speaks to the history of the Harvey girls. The Barstow train station, or Harvey House, at this time is now open to the public, and the former hotel is now a museum. And if your goal is to have a classy ball, you can actually rent the place. It's actually beautifully restored, and it was really fun to hang around there and look around. And I want to briefly talk about the Harvey girls without being politically incorrect. But this guy, Fred Harvey, opened these places, and they were very classy places, and he had this hiring program where he would hire unattached single women who were attractive to work in the place. And they had a very strict curfew, and they had to live in dormitories, and they were not allowed to fraternize with the customers, etc. So it wasn't a brothel or anything like that. It was very proper. But of course, the men that were traveling would enjoy coming to the place and having these lovely ladies take care of them. But again, it was all above ground, and it was very proper. If you go upstairs in the Harvey House, there's this curious space museum. And it's kind of odd to have it here, but as it turns out, there's a lot of space interest in this area. There's the craters and the UFO stuff, so I guess it's appropriate to have a space museum here, but it seemed a little out of place to me. But anyway, it's really nice and it's worthwhile to check out. You can even take a selfie in a spacesuit. Another must-see in this area is the Mother Road Route 66 Museum. Unfortunately, it's only open Friday through Sunday from 10 to 3, but if you happen to be there at the right time, it's a must-see.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, how are you? Are you a volunteer or do you
All volunteers here, yeah.
This museum is absolutely crammed with Route 66 memorabilia, and it's definitely a must-stop if you're in the area. Of course, the timing is critical because of the opening hours, but otherwise, it's a really cool museum with so much stuff to see. Alright, so now it's time to leave Barstow, and this Route 66 motel kind of caught my eye, so I just cruised in and drove around. And it's kind of customary on Route 66 to have some old cars laying around, so they've purchased a couple and put them on the lot. And then there's this cool old yellow Dodge in the garage there. It looks like that one's probably in service today. It's time to leave Barstow and we head toward Victorville, but on the way we go through Helendale and you'll see this old Poly gas sign. You look at the prices there. Those must have been from sometime in the early 60s or something like that. This is a peaceful stretch of Route 66, but we are getting into California, so it's getting busier. The next stop is this really cool Bottle Tree Ranch, and you can stop there and peer through the fence. You can go inside too, I think, but I just didn't have time, so I just looked over the fence and checked it out. It's pretty cool. Next is the town of Oro Grande, and you'll come across Cross-Eyed Cow Pizza Parlor. The pizza place is actually located in an old 1920s Studebaker shop. It's worth a stop if you have a hankering for some pizza. As we come into Victorville, we cross the Mojave River, and this is a modified Baltimore Truss Bridge. And check out the ornate guardrails that you see along the way. This is a very cool bridge, and you're right alongside the railway. I was fortunate enough to be following a train as I went through. It was very nice. Next, we roll into the town of Victorville, and we're starting to get into eastern LA. And I was getting a little bit fed up with all the traffic and the people, but it was okay. And I changed my plan because of what was happening. One thing I saw along the way was this really cool, I'm guessing it's a 1951 Chevrolet convertible. Beautiful car, nice restoration. After Victorville, I'm forced to get on I-15, but you can see the gorgeous San Gabriel Mountains in the distance. Next up, we come upon the site of the original McDonald's, opened by Richard and Maurice McDonald in 1948. It's important to note this is not the original McDonald's, it's the site. So this building was reconstructed by Albert Okura, who's the gentleman who also bought the town of Amboy. He's got a very keen interest in the history of the Route 66 area, and he's created this McDonald's museum on the original site. It's important to note that you can't buy a hamburger here, but you can see all the memorabilia in the museum, which is awesome. I talked to the staff there, and one interesting thing they told me is that the McDonald's Corporation is not real happy about what they're doing. Here's a picture of the original McDonald's, and it looks nothing like the current building. But he constructed this sign, and this is actually a fake sign just to indicate the history of the place. Here's a view of the outside of the building, and you can see it's pretty nice. And one of the jokes that these guys told me is that people so often come in asking to buy a hamburger, but again, you cannot buy any food there. It's just a museum. Here's an original timeline which shows when the place was opened and some of the history along the way. And then as you travel around the location, there's this huge, very detailed mural as you exit the place. So it's definitely a worthwhile stop, although it's off the beaten path of Route 66, so you have to take a little bit of detour. But I highly recommend checking it out if you have any interest in it. If you watch my video Route 66 number 4, you'll remember I traveled from Gallup to Winslow, and I talked about the Wigwam Motel in Holbrook, Arizona. And I mentioned that these started in the 1930s, and they were built up to 1950. And only the 2 final ones of the 7 are remaining. This one here, which I mentioned there is in San Bernardino, but a viewer corrected me and said this one is actually in Rialto, California. But anyway, this is the final one that was built. The one in Holbrook is the penultimate one, but it's the same theme, same kind of construction, and they've got some old cars hanging out. So I just took a drive through to check it out. It looks similar to the one in Holbrook. The cars are more interesting in the one in Holbrook, but this one is probably a nicer location. If you do plan to motor west and stay at motels, then definitely checking out one of the wigwams would be a worthwhile venture. Next up, you're going to see this electronic billboard in this beautiful yellow gas station at Rancho Cucamonga, and I'm going to explain how the two are related.
There you go.
I thought you were telling me to look out for it.
Oh, no. Come on in. Hey, howdy.
Hey, my friend.
This is Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
How's it going? So this place was opened in 1900 something?
1915.
1915.
Yeah. Here's a little brief history of it. I remember when it looked like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Because they said
Yes, it did.
This guy.
I'm from here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You're one of those
They
guys.
said abandoned for over 30 years, yeah.
And then it started restoration in 2013?
Yeah, in 15 they had the grand reopen, 100-year grand reopen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're all volunteers.
Yeah.
But
Well-
everything you see is donated materials and donated labor.
Who was behind the restoration? Was it a group of people or?
There's a gentleman, Al. I thought for sure we'd see Al here today, and the guy who actually runs our place, Anthony. But here's a whole book on, going to the city council meetings, and they had a cleanup day.
Was there like permit stuff and environmental stuff?
Yeah, from what I hear, they actually had the permits to level this place.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even see this big electronic billboard out here. They
Yeah.
called Lamar Advertising. They had actually owned the property.
Oh.
And then the city declared it a historical site, and Lamar says, "Oh crap, we can't do nothing with it now." So
Oh,
they
yeah.
donated it to
Oh, nice.
us. So that was the only thing they wanted. So as long as we can keep our sign on the property, we'll donate the property.
Oh, that's cool.
And they have to have access to it.
And then was the restoration work done by volunteers or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
All the concrete was donated. All this, what do they call this material? DG?
DG, yeah.
DG.
All the fencing.
Yeah. The little book I was reading said that this is, as far as restored gas stations, this is the nicest one on Route
Nice
66.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard personally that we have the cleanest restroom on all of Route 66.
Yep.
Is that bragging?
I don't mind going in there.
No, of course.
It's always nice and cool in there.
Of course it's a good
Where'd
thing.
Ron go? He's in the restroom again. So we have a guy that I see quite often, Bob, swears that's his foot. The place was pretty rickety, I guess, when they started the.
There was no foundation. It was
Yeah.
just sitting here.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was falling apart, and then as they rebuilt it, the whole building started shaking.
So that's when he started to run off.
They ran off,
But
yeah.
it didn't seem to bother the other two guys.
Ever.
Did they have to redo the foundation and all that stuff?
I'm not sure how they did it.
Yeah.
Visiting the restored Richfield gas station in Rancho Cucamonga was certainly a highlight of my trip, and meeting Don, Robert, and Jeff was just fantastic. They're awesome hosts, volunteers. They do accept donations, and if you'd like to contribute, you can also buy something there. I chose to buy one of the classic car calendars that they offered.
Well, thanks for coming by.
Nice meeting you, man.
All right, thanks for coming by. Yeah, come by again.
Yeah, I'll let everybody know about this place.
After I left Rancho Cucamonga, I realized I was really in an urban sprawl, and it was Friday afternoon, and I just made the decision that I didn't want to deal with the long haul into Costa Mesa, so I just got on the freeway and beelined it there so I could make it to the end. My original plan was to spend an extra day, but I changed that. There's the famous Mel's Diner, and then I worked my way to the Costa Mesa Pier, which is the end point of Route 66. This is an endpoint sign that I found out on the road, and I stopped there for a photo. And I also understand you can head out on the pier, and there's a guy out there who's put up a sign that says this is the official end. It isn't really, but he's got a nice place to visit if you'd like to do it. Here's a sign of the Santa Monica Pier. I just decided to save time and not head out there because I wanted to get out of town and find a camping spot. But this is the end of my amazing trip. I could go back, I think, and do that stretch through the more urban area if I had some time, but that's a project for next time. So anyway, I appreciate you coming along on this great ride along Route 66, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching.